You are tired. I know. That problem which has haunted you for months, perhaps years, is there again. You wake up and it is already waiting. You go to sleep and it lies down with you. It may be a debt that does not stop growing. It may be a pain in the body that no doctor resolves. It may be a relationship that drains your energy. It may be that sensation of being trapped in a life that is not yours. Whatever it may be, this problem has become a giant before you, and you have already tried everything. You have already prayed, you have already cried, you have already asked for advice, you have already watched videos, you have already read books, you have already pretended it did not exist, and the giant remains there, standing, looking down at you. Today, this ends. In this video, I will show you exactly why this problem seems invincible, what is the hidden mechanism that feeds it without you noticing, and the concrete step that will make you strike down this giant once and for all. Stay until the end, because what I will reveal in the final minutes is what changes everything. Before continuing, let me ask you something. How many times have you said or thought, "I cannot take this anymore"? How many times have you looked at your situation and felt that you were alone in a war that no one sees? A survey by the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics revealed that more than 60% of Brazilians over 35 years of age report some level of chronic stress. 60%. This means that if you are in this boat, most people around you are also in it, but almost no one speaks about it. Everyone pretends they are well. At the family lunch, in the work group, in the supermarket line, everyone carrying a giant on their back and smiling as if it did not exist. The problem is not the giant itself. The problem is the way we relate to it, and it is here that the turning point begins. Let us speak about the first symptom of one who is losing the battle against the giant. Pay attention, because this is treacherous. The first sign is the normalization of suffering. You stop finding it strange to feel that. Anxiety becomes routine. Insomnia becomes a companion. The lack of joy becomes the new normal. You wake up with a heavy chest and think, "It is just how it is," right? No, it is not just how it is. This is the giant domesticating you. When you accept suffering as an inevitable part of your life, you stop fighting. And when you stop fighting, the giant grows. It feeds on your resignation. Every sigh of "there is no way" is a full plate for it. Let me tell you about Dona Marta, from Belo Horizonte. 62 years old, retired, a widow for 7. When her husband passed away, she entered into deep mourning. Normal, understandable, human. But the mourning became depression, and the depression became identity. She began to present herself as So Antonio's widow. She stopped going out. She stopped cooking. She stopped calling friends. Her giant was loneliness disguised as mourning. And everyone around her said, "Poor thing, it is just how it is, she lost her husband." No one questioned it, no one confronted it, because we learned to normalize the pain of others so as not to have to deal with our own. If you identified with any part of this story, type in the comments, "I understood." It may seem simple, but this act of recognizing is the first movement against the giant. Now comes the part that few people speak of, the real cause of the giant. And here I need you to pay much attention, because what I am going to say may be uncomfortable. The giant is not the external problem. The giant is the story you tell about the problem. I will repeat, because this is crucial. The giant is not the debt, it is not the disease, it is not the toxic relationship. The giant is the internal narrative that you created around these things. It is the voice that says, "You will never get out of this." It is the automatic thought of, "People like me do not succeed." It is the invisible belief that you do not deserve something better. Neuroscience has already proven this. Studies from Harvard University show that the human brain processes about 60,000 thoughts per day. And the majority of these thoughts are repetitive and negative. Your brain is not trying to destroy you. It is trying to protect you. It identifies pain, fear, threat, and triggers alerts all the time. But when these alerts become the only frequency you tune into, the small problem becomes a monster. The overdue bill becomes a catastrophe. The argument with the spouse becomes the end of the world. The pain in the knee becomes a death sentence. Your brain is a survival machine. It was programmed over millions of years to detect danger. When our ancestors heard a noise in the forest, The brain did not stop to analyze if it was a tiger or the wind. It assumed the worst and triggered the fight or flight reaction. Adrenaline, cortisol, accelerated heartbeat, everything to ensure that you survived. The problem is that today, in 2026, living in an apartment in São Paulo or a house in Goiânia, you do not face tigers. But your brain treats the overdue bank slip, the boss's WhatsApp at 11 at night, and the neighbor's gossip as if they were tigers. And your body responds the same way. Cortisol triggered, stomach churned, badly slept nights, immunity down low. Now add this to the Brazilian scenario. The cost of living that does not stop rising, the uncertainty of employment, the urban violence that makes you think twice before leaving home at night, the concern for the children, the fear of growing old without money, without health, without support. Each of these concerns is an alert that your brain registers as a survival threat, and when you have 5, 10, 20 alerts triggering at the same time, the system crashes. It is like a fire alarm that never stops ringing. After a time, you can no longer distinguish what is real danger and what is noise. Everything seems urgent, everything seems grave, everything seems giant. And it is in this state of overload that bad decisions are made, relationships wear out, and health collapses. Now think with me. If the giant is fed by the narrative, what happens if you change the narrative? If instead of "I will never get out of this," you begin to say, "I am finding the way to get out of this"? Does it seem foolish? Science says no. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology demonstrated that people who practice cognitive reframing, that is, consciously change the way they interpret a situation, show a significant reduction in cortisol levels and an increase in problem-solving capacity. In other words, changing the story you tell yourself literally changes the chemistry of your body. And here enters the spiritual dimension, which does not contradict science but complements it. All great spiritual traditions speak about the power of the word and of thought. In the Christian tradition, Proverbs says that death and life are in the power of the tongue. In Buddhism, right thought is one of the pillars of the path to liberation from suffering. In Spiritism, thoughts are creative forces that shape the reality around them. In Umbanda, it is said that thought is a form of energy that attracts similar vibrations. No matter what your belief is, the principle is the same. That which you repeat internally manifests externally. And this is not empty motivational discourse. Think of the following. When you wake up and the first thing you do is take your cell phone and read bad news, the tone of your entire day changes. You leave home more irritated. You react worse in traffic. You have less patience with colleagues. You eat worse at lunch, and at night when you lie down, you feel that the day was heavy. But why was it heavy? Because the events were terrible. Or because the lens through which you saw those events was contaminated since 7 in the morning. Most of the time it is the lens, and the lens is the narrative. But here goes an important alert. I am not saying that it is enough to think positively and the problem vanishes. That would be irresponsible. What I am saying is that the first step to defeating the giant is to stop feeding it with the narrative of impotence. Because as long as you believe it is invincible, it is. At the moment you begin to question that belief, the cracks appear. And speaking of cracks, let us go to the second movement against the giant. If the first was to recognize that the narrative is trapping you, the second is to identify the origin of that narrative. Where did this story come from that you cannot, you are not able, you do not deserve? For most people, this story has roots in childhood. And here I need to be careful and at the same time direct. Many of us grew up in environments where love was conditioned on performance. You were loved when you got good grades, when you obeyed, when you did not bother. And when you failed, silence, punishment, disapproval. This created a dangerous equation in the mind. My value depends on what I do, not on what I am. And this equation accompanies you until today. When the problem appears, the first reaction is not, "How do I solve this?" It is, "What is wrong with me?" You internalize the failure. The external problem becomes internal guilt, and guilt is the giant's preferred fuel. Think of your own story. Perhaps your father never said he was proud of you. Perhaps your mother compared you with the neighbor's son your whole life. Perhaps in school you were humiliated for not understanding mathematics. Perhaps in the first job, a boss said that you were never going to get anywhere. Perhaps a teacher laughed at your question in front of the class. Perhaps an ex-partner said that no one would want you. These words, spoken 10, 20, 30 years ago, are still active within you, like a program running in the background on the computer. You do not even notice, but it is there, consuming your energy, locking your system. And each time a new problem appears, this old program runs faster, reinforcing the message, "See, I told you that you were not capable." This in psychology is called a limiting belief, and in Brazil the culture reinforces many of them. There is no way for the Brazilian. Here things never work. The poor were made to suffer. You grew up hearing phrases like this on the radio, on television, at the bar table, in the bus conversation, and without noticing you absorbed these ideas as absolute truths. But they are not truths. They are collective narratives that were repeated so many times they gained the weight of reality. And do you know what is saddest? Often the person who said that does not even remember, but you carry it as if it had been yesterday. If at this moment you are feeling something in your chest, a pressure, a desire to cry, a restlessness, breathe deeply. This is a good sign. This means that you are touching the real wound, and it is only by touching it that the healing begins. If this video is making sense to you so far, do one thing: press the like button. It is not for vanity, it is because when you like, the algorithm delivers this content to more people who need to hear this. Your like may be the push someone needed not to give up today. Now let us go to the third movement. And this is what separates those who watch videos from those who transform their lives. Because information without action is only entertainment. The third movement is surgical action. Let me explain. When the giant is in front of you, your natural tendency is to attack it entirely. You want to resolve everything at once, the complete debt, the relationship in its entirety, the health all at once. And what happens? You paralyze. Because it is too big, it is too heavy, it is too impossible. This is exactly the giant's trick. It wants you to look at its size. Because while you look at the size, you forget to look at the base. Remember the story of David and Goliath? Everyone knows it. The small boy who defeated the enormous warrior, but almost no one pays attention to a fundamental detail. David did not try to face Goliath in the conventional way. He did not put on armor. He did not take a sword. He knew that in that game he would lose, so he changed the rules. He took a stone, a single stone, and he hit the exact point, the forehead, the only unprotected place. A surgical action. Your giant also has a forehead. It has a vulnerable point, and generally that point is much smaller than you imagine. Let me give you practical examples so you understand. If your giant is financial, its forehead is not the total debt. The forehead is the habit that generates the debt. It may be the impulsive purchase on the credit card. It may be the subscription you forgot to cancel. It may be the weekend picks for things you do not need. To attack the forehead is to focus on that specific habit. Only one. Does it resolve everything? No. But it begins to crack the armor. If your giant is emotional, its forehead is not resolving all my anxiety. The forehead is the specific trigger that sets off the crisis. It may be the cell phone before sleeping. It may be the comparison on Instagram. It may be the conversation with that person who always destabilizes you. To identify that trigger and act upon it is the stone in the giant's forehead. If your giant is spiritual, the forehead may be the absence of silence in your routine. Perhaps you do not need a 10-day meditation retreat in the Himalayas. Perhaps you need 5 minutes in silence, sitting on the porch before the rest of the house wakes up. Without a cell phone, without news, without a task list, only you and the silence. 5 minutes. That is the stone. Do you perceive the pattern? The giant wants you to think big. The solution asks that you act small, precise and certain. Now let me tell you what happened with Donna Marta, whom I mentioned before. Her daughter watched a video similar to this one, and instead of trying to resolve all of her mother's depression at once, she focused on one thing only. She called her mother and said, "Mother, tomorrow I will stop by there at 8 in the morning. We are going to walk to the bakery on the corner and back. Only that." Donna Marta resisted. She said she did not want to, that she was tired, that she had no spirit. The daughter did not give up. The next day she was there. They walked 200 meters, they bought bread, they returned, done. The next day the daughter called again, same thing. On the fourth time, Donna Marta was already waiting at the door. In the second week she walked alone. In the first month she was already greeting the neighbors. In 3 months she was participating in a walking group in the park. The giant of loneliness did not die in one day. But the first crack appeared in that walk of 200 meters to the bakery. This is surgical action. This is the stone in the forehead. And here I need to say something that perhaps you do not want to hear, but that I say because I care about your transformation. The surgical action needs to happen every single day. Every day. Not when you are motivated. Not when the moon is full. Not when the month turns. Every day. Because the giant does not take time off. It does not say, today is Sunday, I will leave you in peace. It is there, constant. And your response needs to be constant as well. Discipline is more powerful than motivation. Motivation is a visitor. It appears, stays a while, and goes away. Discipline is a resident. It is there even when you do not want it, even when it rains, even when it hurts. But here goes the point that changes everything, and this is the revelation I promised at the beginning. You do not need to have discipline for everything. You need to have discipline for one thing only: the stone, the surgical action. That small, specific act that attacks the giant's forehead. It is only that. Everything else organizes itself around that single action. Quantum physics has a fascinating concept called the observer effect. In simple terms, when you observe a subatomic particle, the act of observing changes its behavior. Reality alters by conscious attention. Now transpose this to your life. When you direct your conscious attention to a specific point of your situation, when you deliberately choose where to place your focus, the dynamic changes. Not by magic, but because attention generates action, action generates result, result generates confidence, confidence generates more action. It is a virtuous cycle that begins with a single movement of attention. Spiritual traditions call this by different names. In Christianity, it is faith. Not the passive faith of waiting for a miracle, but the active faith of taking the step, even without seeing the complete path. In Buddhism, it is mindfulness. In Stoicism, it is focus on what is under your control. In Candomblé, it is directed accès. The language changes, but the essence is identical. To concentrate your vital force on a point and act. Now let us speak about what happens after you begin. Because it would be dishonest on my part to say that it is easy. It is not. When you begin to attack the giant, it reacts. And it reacts strongly. Do you know how? Through the people around you. When you decide to change, the people who are accustomed to your old pattern will find it strange. They will question. They will even try to pull you back. You decide to stop drinking and the friend says, "What is this, man? A little beer does no harm." You decide to leave the toxic relationship and the family says, "But he is the father of your children. Endure it." You decide to invest in yourself and the colleague says, "What is this course for? This is nonsense." These are the giant soldiers. They are not bad people. They are people who, consciously or not, are invested in the maintenance of the system as it is. Because your change reflects their stagnation, and that is uncomfortable. There is a concept in biology that applies perfectly here. It is called homeostasis. It is the tendency of every system to maintain equilibrium. The human body does this with temperature, with heartbeat, with the blood sugar level. And social systems do this with behaviors. Your family, your group of friends, your work environment, all function as organisms that seek equilibrium. When you change, the system becomes unbalanced, and the natural reaction is to pull you back to the old pattern to re-establish the equilibrium. It is not malice, it is mechanism. But if you do not understand this, you will think the whole world is against you and you may give up. Therefore, protecting the process is as important as initiating the process. Here goes a piece of advice worth gold. Protect your process. You do not need to announce to everyone that you are changing. You do not need to ask permission. You do not need approval. Do it in silence. Let the results speak. When the giant falls, everyone will see. And then, curiously, those same ones who doubted will say, "I always believed in you." I want you to stop for a second and imagine yourself 6 months from now. Visualize, You woke up. You do not have that weight in your chest. The first thing you feel is calm. Not euphoria, not agitation. Calm. That problem that suffocated you, it may still exist in part, but it no longer dominates you. You have clarity. You have energy. You have direction. The people around you perceive that something changed in you. They do not know how to explain what it is, but they feel it. Your children feel it. Your spouse feels it. Your colleagues feel it. You walk differently, you speak differently, you look differently. It is not arrogance, it is presence. It is the presence of someone who faced the giant and did not retreat. This scenario is not fantasy. It is a real possibility. But it only becomes real if you act, not tomorrow, not Monday, now. In this moment, while this video is still fresh in your mind and in your heart. So here is what I want you to do in the next 60 seconds. Take a paper or open the notepad on your cell phone. Write the name of your giant, one word or a short phrase. Debt, loneliness, fear, relationship, health, self-esteem, whatever it is, write it. Then underneath, write the giant's forehead, the vulnerable point, the habit, the trigger, the specific action that, if you attack every day, begins to bring it down. Write it. And finally, write the stone, the surgical action that you are going to do tomorrow morning. A small, concrete, possible action. That does not depend on anyone. That does not need money. That does not require a special condition. It only requires your decision. If you did this exercise, you are already different from 90% of the people who watch a motivational video and do not move a finger. You have already taken the first step, and the first step is always the most difficult. Now, before closing, I need to tell you about an error that almost everyone commits on this journey. The error is thinking that defeating the giant means never having problems again. No, defeating the giant means that you develop the internal capacity to face any giant that appears, because they will appear. Life is like that, but the difference is that you will no longer feel small before them, because you have already proven to yourself that you can, and this proof no one takes from you. No economic crisis, no betrayal, no disease, no failure, no person. Nothing in the world can take from you the memory that you have already struck down a giant before. This is the true victory. It is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of strength. It is knowing that you have within yourself everything you need to face whatever comes. Science calls this resilience. Spirituality calls it unshakable faith. The ancients called it courage. The name does not matter. What matters is that this quality is not a privilege of superheroes. It lives in every person who decides one day to stop running from the giant and turn to face it. It lives in you. It always lived. It was only waiting for you to recognize it. And if today you are going through the worst phase of your life, if you are at the bottom of the pit, if you see no way out, I need to tell you something. The bottom of the pit has an advantage that no other place has. From it, any direction is up. You do not need to climb a mountain. You need to take a step, a single step, the stone in the forehead, tomorrow morning. Only that. The rest comes after. If this video touched you truly, if it lit something within you, if you felt that this message was made for you to hear at this exact moment of your life, then I have a request. First, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Because every week there is content here that was made thinking of you. Second, share this video with one person. One. That person who you know is facing a giant and who needs to hear this. It can be an audio on WhatsApp saying, "Watch this, I thought of you." This simple gesture can be the stone that saves someone's life. And finally, tell me in the comments, what is the name of your giant? I read every comment. And when you write the name of the giant, something powerful happens. You take it out of the shadow, you bring it to the light, and in the light, no giant survives. You were not made to live cornered. You were not made to survive counting the days. You were made to conquer, to live with plenitude, to look back and say, "I went through this and I came out stronger." This is your destiny, not because someone decreed it, but because you decided it today, now, in this second, now. The giant has fallen. Now it is with you.